Yep, I hurt myself. Can't ride a motorcycle right now. I was up in Canada and I took a fall on some dirt bikes and here we are. But I still want to talk about motorcycles because they're cool, and I think because Father's Day is right around the corner, might as well talk about some dad bikes. And the best dad bikes out there are muscle bikes. I have a long history with muscle bikes. I absolutely love this style of motorcycle because it's as close as I'm gonna get to owning like a classic muscle car from the 70s. And that's part of the reason why I own this VMAX right here. But I have experience on just about every muscle bike out there. So I figured today we're gonna run through all of them and we're gonna see which one I consider the best and why. But that's enough preamble. Let's just dive on in with the first one, and that is the Yamaha VMAX.
The Yamaha VMAX has a long history of making Harley owners cry because it's a Yamaha that just absolutely bitch slapped their potato bike. The bike first dropped in the 80s and it has one of the greatest commercials of all time.
The new 145 horsepower VMAX from Yamaha is like no other motorcycle you've ever seen before. But you may have noticed that.
It's got 2.5 major iterations as far as I'm concerned. The first one came out with a claimed 140 horsepower, but really only 115 to 120 are hitting the ground. It also claims roughly 84 foot-pounds of torque while weighing in at 631 pounds. The 1197cc V4 was originally a touring bike motor, which allowed these Gen 1s to live a very long life. Mine, for example, has over 72,000 miles on the clock and it still runs great. Sometimes. It's fine. It runs okay. The Gen 1.5 happened in 1993 when Yamaha realized there were too many corpses with toe tags claiming V-boost as cause of death. They beefed up the suspension, added another 2 pots to the front calipers, and there were a few other tweaks here and there. The bike ran largely unchanged for another 12 years until 2005 when it went away, and then it came back in the form of the most insane motorcycle the world had ever seen to that point. It was a 1679cc V4 muscle bike putting down 197 horsepower and 123 foot-pounds of torque. Unfortunately, it got a weight bump too, rising to 694 pounds, but still though, this is perhaps one of the most legendary muscle bikes out there.
This thing is such a cool motorcycle, and to be honest, I kind of prefer the original one because you can really play with all the power on this one versus the new one, which is just, it's way too much power, I think. You can find decent examples of these for like $4,000 too, and go have a riot of a time. The biggest problem with the VMAX as a platform though, is it doesn't handle very well. If you've ridden one of these motorcycles and you felt like you were gonna die going through a corner, that is 100% down to the wheels that Yamaha put on this thing. To get this bike to turn, I actually had to put a set of 17s on here, and I went all the way up to a 190 section rear tire in the back. And now this thing actually handles just about as good as any modern sport bike. It just goes to show it's not the frame or the suspension that's lacking on this bike. It was the tires. Yes, the modern one is more reliable than this thing because this thing's got 4 carburetors and my God, are they a nightmare. But I don't know, there's just something about the genuine article and the original VMAX. I don't know, it's one of the coolest bikes out there, man.
The VROD was Harley's answer to the VMAX. They went to Porsche with their VR1000 motor, wanting to make a more reliable, street-focused power cruiser that could throw down in the early 2000s horsepower wars. The VRSCA came out with an 1130cc liquid-cooled V-twin, which was basically moon talk to Harley riders at the time, and it was pushing 115 horsepower and 74 foot-pounds of torque. Believe it or not, the Harley was lighter than the VMAX, weighing in at only 615 pounds, but it wasn't until the Street Rod when the bike really started to take off. They increased the power to 120 horses and 80 foot-pounds of torque with a bigger tank, better brakes, better suspension, and despite a short model run, this is the one you want to get, in my opinion.
Now I have a feeling that if you enjoy the history sections of the videos that I do here, you're going to enjoy this next piece of trivia because it has to do with motorcycling's biggest icon, Evel Knievel.
Specifically the stunt that ended his career, the infamous shark jump. The shark jump was scheduled for January 31st, 1977 in Chicago, and it was inspired by, of all things, Jaws. Because Knievel was a maniac, he wanted to jump a tank of sharks on live TV, but in rehearsal he wiped out, broke both of his arms, and hit a cameraman. After years and years of compounding injuries, this was the one that broke the camel's back, almost literally. And then between this and Happy Days recreating a similar stunt, it gave us the phrase jumping the shark. The Shark Jump XR750 is still in a museum in Vegas, but you can actually own a piece of it.
This watch made by REC Watches takes the clutch perch from the Shark Jump bike and puts a star at the 12 o'clock position using that material.
The rest of the TTT Knievel watch is made of high quality stainless steel and powered by a Swiss-made automatic movement. The face is styled after Knievel's suit, and it has an open back so you can see the guts, because what self-respecting rider wouldn't want to see the inner workings? It's also designed with a 30-degree rotation so you can read it easily while you're riding. There are only 736 of these watches available, and you can get one for 40% off your order with the code SPITES40. And with that, let's get back to the VROD.
Now, I do want to remind you that we are giving away that VROD that you've been seeing here. I don't have it with me because, again, it's up at Jake the Garden Snake's house, but you have until Sunday to get yourself entered to win. That bike is freaking awesome, and I really wish I could keep it because it is such a unique piece of Harley-Davidson's history, and it's what I like to call a you motorcycle. That is when a company looks at all of the people are talking about them online, and they were like, you, check this thing out. And it was such a paradigm shift for the company, and it's such a bummer that nobody actually bought them because the Harley guys couldn't compute. And Jake the Garden Snake even managed to get the damn thing to wheelie. I mean, how crazy is that?
Then you have the DIAVEL. I mean, of course we were going to have to talk about the DIAVEL. This is what you get when a superbike company tries to make a cruiser. What you end up with is a fat monster, with a capital M, making way more power and also featuring one of the best engine notes I've heard from a bike in my entire life. Like a lot of muscle bikes, there's a gazillion different versions, but in my honest opinion, the original Carbon is the best. It had the 1200cc V-twin putting down 162 horsepower and 90 foot-pounds of torque while weighing in at 516 pounds, making it the lightest and fastest of the bikes we've talked about so far. It also has 6 gears in the box because this bike isn't a cruiser, and I'm not joking.
I've had this argument so many times with a buddy of mine who owns a DIAVEL and says it's the best bike out there. And it's a great motorcycle, but it is not a cruiser. It really isn't. If you sit on it, the pegs are under your butt. That's not where cruiser pegs go. I'm not complaining though, because what that results in is a very, very competent motorcycle in a corner. If you're looking for the best handling muscle bike out there, it's the DIAVEL, period, full stop. End of story. That thing is nuts. I know a bunch of people are gonna ask why I only talked about the original, and that's because I've ridden the 1260 and I've ridden a V4, and to be honest, I think the original, it's the best. It sounds cool. It handles great. It's got a little less technology, but I do have a very cool opportunity coming up thanks to Ducati, who reached out to little old me and they were like, you wanna come check out the X DIAVEL? Because you can come check out the new V4X DIAVEL. And I said yes. So I may be amending this later on down the line, but that original V-twin just holds a special place in my heart. To me, Ducati really is a V-twin company.
Rocket 3 time, baby. This one's a recent experience for me, and my god, it was an eye-opener. I had a few minutes of seat time on one of these back in the day, and I thought it was fine, but then I took the Storm GT out, and it was a laugh riot. It is the second most powerful muscle cruiser out there, with 180 horsepower, but the biggest production motorcycle motor ever at 2458 cc's, and the most torque out of an ICE bike at 166 foot-pounds. There's nothing else like this thing, but it's also one of the heaviest bikes we've covered at 705 pounds wet.
I said this in my review of the Rocket 3, but that is the most dirt stupid motorcycle out there. You just need to treat the throttle like a light switch, and it is so much fun. The components surrounding that motor too are just incredible. It stops like nobody's business and it handles really well through a corner. I will say though, despite having as much power as it does, there is a lot of technology holding that bike to the ground, because when you have that much torque, you really do need some rider aids to keep the thing attached and not send you off a cliff. It's also very, very hot because all of the headers are right here. So if you're sitting in slow speed traffic, you're just gonna be boiling and there's no way around it.
Now I do want to take some time to talk about some smaller offerings because not everyone can hop on a top shelf muscle cruiser. If you're looking for something more affordable but still cool, you've really got two options in my opinion, the Scout and the NIGHTSTER.
But what about the Sportster S? That makes 120 horsepower.
Yeah, maybe, but go sit on one and tell me you're having a good time. The Scout and the NIGHTSTER are also just a little bit more comparable in my opinion, and we'll start with the Indian. I'm going to take the Bobber as my example because it seems to be the one that people go for in the comments most often, and I'm not going to lie, it's a decent looking bike. It's got the 1250cc V-twin putting down 105 horsepower and 82 foot-pounds of torque while weighing in at 542 pounds wet. The Harley, by comparison, has only 975 cc's and is putting down 94 horsepower and 70 foot-pounds of torque while doing the unthinkable. It weighs in at under 500 pounds. I mean, it's 487 to be exact, so just barely, but still, props where it's due. That's Harley's lightest bike in years. It's also their cheapest, with the 2025 only costing $10,000, making the Harley, wait for it, one of the cheapest bikes on this list.
If I was gonna compare the Scout and the Harley to two of the bigger bikes on this list, the Scout goes a little bit more in the mold of the Rocket 3. It is a dirt stupid motorcycle. The V-twin in there is so rowdy and it just wants you to accelerate like nobody's business. And honestly, it's one of the few Indian motors that I've actually really enjoyed. I just personally don't think that the rest of the bike is as well sorted as the motor is. It kind of feels like they put all of their perk points into engine and literally put nothing else anywhere else. And I know this is gonna piss people off, but I don't care. If the Scout is like the little version of the Rocket, then the NIGHTSTER is the little version of the DIAVEL. It is fast, it handles great, and it does, when you put a set of pipes on there, it sounds really unique. As a Sportster owner, I am so happy that the new NIGHTSTER is out there because it's keeping that same iconic style while modernizing it in all the right ways.
Now we're going to do some honorable mentions, and we're going to start out with Harley's Milwaukee 8s. The M8s are a little underwhelming, mostly because their power to weight ratios are somewhere between and okay. Don't get me wrong, a clutch dump will knock your fillings loose if you can get the rear tire to hook up, but given the price of entry, you're better served by just about anything else on the list. Also, the NIGHTSTER is going to bitch slap any Milwaukee 8 off the line.
As much as I adore those motorcycles, I mean, the Fat Bob was one of my dream bikes for a while until I discovered that I could just get a VMAX for $4,000. The Fat Bob is so cool, and the FXDR was such a unique option. I can't justify spending that much money on a bike, especially when you can, get a DIAVEL for $6 grand. If I was gonna pick one, it'd probably be the Lowrider S because it's the lightest of them, and they don't make the Fat Bob anymore.
Now I'm going to piss off a bunch of people, and I'm just going to combine a bunch of Japanese V-twin, quote-unquote, muscle bikes in here. So if you're down in the comments being like, but what about the VTX? It's going to be in here. And we're going to use the Yamaha Warrior as the stand-in because it's a really cool motorcycle, but this one also has a very interesting story because it was overshadowed by the MT-01, which was a naked bike using the same motor. Having ridden it, yes, it's fun, and yes, it's a force of nature, but it's not going to be able to throw down with the rest of the bikes on this list.
I know this upsets some people, I know, but the Japanese V-twins, they're a little too samey, and they have the M8 problem where they're just a little too smooth. They don't have the character that I want for a big muscle cruiser, and if they're great for you, that's totally fine. I'm just some guy in a garage that can't even get the walls painted. There is paint back there, by the way. I know there's gonna be some people down in the comments asking me about painting the walls. They will get painted. I just have other stuff going on and a bad arm, so shush.
Now we have to talk about the M109R, and I've kept it separate because it really is its own thing. I haven't ridden it, but looking at the specs, it's got the Harley-Davidson problem where it's heavy and it's not making enough power to really get out of its own way. You've got 125 horsepower moving 764 pounds before we even get to rider weights, so it's got a lot to move, and if you've ridden one of the Harleys and thought that was underwhelming, you're not going to suddenly get on an M109R and be like, whoa, wow, this is really cool. The nice thing about the M109R is it's cheaper than a lot of the other bikes on this list, so that's a thing, but I don't think it would do it for me. But then again, I haven't ridden it, and it's not like I haven't been wrong before.
The M109R is the better option than some of the Harleys, but if you really want that muscle cruiser experience, you're going to be better served by something like a used Rocket 3 or a used DIAVEL, or if you want to get something new, an ex-DIAVEL, V4. Whee!
Lastly, we have to talk about the Buell Super Cruiser. I had to include this one because Buell is doing what Harley-Davidson should be with way less resources. The concept bike was designed by Roland Sands, who is basically cruiser royalty. The cool thing about this bike is that it's actually in production, and I never thought I'd be able to say that. Buell uses their 1190cc V-twin motor in a lot of bikes, and it makes 175 horsepower and 100 foot-pounds of torque while weighing in at only 450 pounds, which is pretty incredible. The only problem with this bike is that it's small batch only, and the production is set to start in the fall, with maybe 1,000 or 2,000 coming out at a time. In that sense, it's a lot like an Arch motorcycle, but an affordable one, in big quotation marks, considering that it's only $25,900, but it's real, and that's awesome.
I have to ride a Super Cruiser. I just have to. I'm actually going to be going up to Harley's Homecoming, and I'd reckon that Buell is going to have one there, so I'll reach out to my guy at Buell. I haven't talked to him in a long time, and see if I can actually get one lined up, because I would love to check this bike out. I was one of the people out there who was poo-pooing it originally because I never thought we'd actually be able to see one in person, and I've actually sat on one. It's comfortable, it feels sporty, it's amazing how light this bike is, and for $25,900, you're getting a really unique experience that can throw down with the likes of the DIAVEL. We are just dealing with those small batch numbers though, so that can turn some people off. And that's why it's an honorable mention and not a little bit higher up on the list. So which one of these bikes is the best? Well, there is no right answer, but the most right answer is the Rocket 3. If you're looking for a muscle bike, the Rocket 3 is probably the one you want to look at because it is the one that keeps with the ethos the most. It is a stupid amount of torque, designed to light up the rear tire, designed to go as fast as possible. It's really comfortable, but if you want something that is a little bit more aggressive, that's where you want the Ducati. As much as I am a huge fan of the VMAX and the VROD, the DIAVEL and the Rocket 3 are better motorcycles. Now, a bunch of people have asked me VMAX or VROD because they are both four-letter bike names, both starting with V. So the VMAX is an interesting motorcycle because while it does make more power, it makes that power for a much shorter section of the power band and much later in the power band. Once V-Boost kicks on, that's when you get your power. Outside of the V-Boost power band, it's making closer to like 90 horsepower. And there's just no way that that bike is going to outrun off the line a VROD because you can just dump the clutch on that thing and all the power is ready for you right off the gate. It's also worth pointing out that right out of the box, the VROD handles better than the VMAX. So if you're looking at something that can go fast and turn, then you do want yourself the VROD. Let me know your thoughts. What is your favorite muscle cruiser down in the comments below? And if you don't have a favorite muscle cruiser, what bike do you think you have that can beat a muscle cruiser in a straight line? Because I bet you're gonna be surprised at how fast these things actually are. And while you're down there, don't forget to get yourself entered to win the VROD. You've only got a few more days. That ends on Sunday at 11:59 Pacific Standard Time. So get yourself entered to win while you can. The Street Rod itself is one of the coolest iterations of that bike. And I mean, it's the VROD. It's Harley-Davidson's first best motorcycle and I mean, it's the VROD. Who wouldn't want to own one, right? So click that link down in the description below and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.